I think I feel very lonely here, so I would like to ask to all panel, my esteemed guests to come on stage, Mr. George Passaris, Mr. Lampros Kourtis, and Miss Ioanna Mylonaki, and Miss Alexandra Tolia. I don't know if please come and sit. Mr. Spyros Kintzios. I don't see Alexandra around. Oh, Alexandra, thank you. Okay. Okay, please sit. No, please. All right. Okay. So I would like to extend a warm thank to all of you who are actively participating in Bio3 Forum, and especially in this interesting panel discussion. What makes this panel interesting is first that it follows after Mr. Tsakiri's talk, and second, that what we are going to discuss in this panel answers questions raised yesterday regarding the development of the startup ecosystem, particularly in the health tech industry, how research teams can effectively commercialize their research projects, and to promote what I call brain circulation within Europe, rather than just brain gain in our country, meaning how we can retain talent in our continent. So let me introduce you to my esteemed guests in this panel, starting with Mr. George Passaris, Director and Senior Regional Representative for Greece and Cyprus at EIF Greece, Mr. Spyros Kintzios, Director, Corporate Development and Strategy at Uni-Pharma Greece, Ms. Ioanna Mylonaki, partner at Untethered Ventures in Greece, Ms. Alexandra Tolia, managing partner at Rhea BioVentures in Greece, and last but not least, Mr. Lampros Kourtis, partner at Olivetree Venture Capital in Greece. So we have a diverse nexus of expertise, bringing together institutional funding, equity investment, corporations, and the financing, as I represent Eurobank in this panel, having in the epicenter of our discussion startups and entrepreneurs, especially in the health tech sector. Yesterday, while sitting in the audience, I reflected on 15 years ago when I was working with an internet service provider here in Greece. At that time, ADSL, the fast internet, entered all Greek households. And I was completely convinced at that time that having internet access, having infrastructure, content, data, social interaction, business networking would flourish. 8 years ago, in 2017, when I was working with Eurobank for the Egg Accelerator, and still I am, I participated in the launch event of EIF, presenting the EquiFund 1 program. Back then, I was completely convinced that access to capital would help the startup ecosystem flourish. Back in 2012, the market value of the startup ecosystem was zero. By 2016, we've heard also from a previous panel with Mr. Lampros and Elena, by 2016 it was below €500 million, and today in 2025, the market value may exceed to 10 to 12 billion euros, and it is expected to triple within the next 3 to 4 years. So having said that, my first question goes to George. George, looking back at the performance of previous EIF EquiFund 1 program, what were the key lessons learned in terms of investment strategy, fund manager selection, and how have these lessons structured the design of EquiFund 2 program? And of course, if you need more time to give us an update on about EIF, we would love to hear from the horse's mouth.
Thank you, Roula. Good afternoon, everyone. I think it's best to start by giving you a very short introduction and description of the European Investment Fund. Many of you, I don't know, few of you, might be aware of, but I'd like to call the European Investment Fund the silent giant in terms of investments in equity, as far as the EU side is concerned, and you'll find out about that. When we talk about the European Investment Fund, we are part of the European Investment Bank group that contains European Investment Bank and the fund, and we are a multilateral development institution. Our mission as an EIF and our target is to indirectly support the SMEs and make their life easier to access finance. And we do that by funding them either through debt or equity indirectly, and also supporting infra projects across the whole of Europe. Thinking about EIF, you have, I would say, three main things that probably will describe our DNA, our focus of who we are. First of all, we manage resources from various different sources. We manage resources from the European Commission, from our mother company, from EIB, but also from regional and national funds, and last but not least, from private investors as well. Very importantly, because we are a hybrid institution, we have public and private investors, we deliver on EU policy goals. And that's paramount because when you look at our shareholding, 60% of our shareholding is the EIB and 30% is the European Commission. So it's important that we align very much with the EU public goals. And that's sustainability, that's innovation, it's social and growth. And last but not least, because as I mentioned to you, we're a hybrid institution, we need to ensure, and we do ensure, that there are financial returns for our shareholders. And that's very important because concentrating then on the equity ecosystem and the equity side of our business, we've been in the market for far too long. In the EU system, we've been operating since 1999 in the equity side. And during that time, we have put about 45 billion euros to work in terms of commitments in the equity, in the EU equity ecosystem. And that translates into more than 1,500 funds that we've actually supported. And all of this is achieved by having a roster of about 100 plus investment professionals, a lot of them with direct expertise. We're talking about the life science side. You know, the people who are my colleagues and who evaluate and who look into these funds have direct expertise, they have the PhDs, they have the knowledge and market knowledge that can actually understand what these fund managers are trying to achieve and ask the right questions in order to evaluate whether they are eligible for the potential investment or not. And looking in the life science sector, because that's equally important, in total we've invested about 5 billion in the EU in about 180 plus funds. And looking at the last 5 years, from 2020 to 2024, we've committed close to 3 billion and 70 plus funds as far as our investment is concerned. So the reason I'm saying all that is because it gives us a unique perspective of the life science sector that allows us to evaluate potential opportunities, which is paramount when it comes to a market which is relatively small, like the Greek market. And Roula mentioned EquiFund 1 and the successor of it, of EquiFund 2, and there are a few similarities, but a lot of differences. Think of EquiFund 1 as our intervention in the market when the market was growing. It was actually the predecessor of EquiFund 1 was the Jessica program. And back in 2012, we did the first VC, an investment of the first VC in Greece. Roll the clock forward to EquiFund 1, and what we did using national funds from the EC program is we went into the market as it was growing. And we targeted investment stages. And what do I mean by that? The investments that we did in funds back then were not thematically based, but we were targeting VCs that were in the innovation, early stages, and growth stages. And that is very different looking into what we have now, the EquiFund 2, because we feel, and Haris Lampropoulos mentioned that, is that the market has matured, it has grown, and it has reached a level where we believe it can support these thematically based funds. And that's the reason and the rationale behind launching EquiFund 2. And these are national pots of money. So the government believed into the theme and supported that. There are two main windows. The one which is actually taking the lion's share is the life sciences and the healthcare. And the other one is the social impact and sustainability. And again, it was very important for us to differentiate and put the resources for that. So these are perhaps the differentiating factors between the two. What is a common theme, and what Roula was asking me, is what lessons we learned and what we're doing in the EquiFund 2 that perhaps we haven't done in EquiFund 1, is it's paramount for us to ensure transparency and consistency. The way that we select funds does not differ across the whole of the EU. We have a consistent theme that goes through identifying the funds, running through the analysis that we're actually having, doing a very detailed due diligence on the funds that we actually select into the second or third stage of our analysis, and then reaching the stage where we actually do the underwriting and we continue in the support. And this is very important because we feel that every fund needs to be treated the same way in terms of the analysis, whether it's in a big developed market or in a developing market like the one we are talking about. And then, closing that, there is a very important part of what we will say, the DNA of the proposal. Every fund that comes through our door and submits a proposal needs to demonstrate to us that they have all the ingredients that can form part of our portfolio of funds that we're actually supporting. So we're talking about, and we place quite a lot of emphasis into their investment strategy. What's their focus? What's their unique selling point? Is there an alignment of interest? Then their why, the market opportunity we're talking about, and we'll talk more about the life science sector. What have they identified, and why do they believe that setting up shop, and we're talking about the Greek market, will actually make them succeed and produce the investments that will help the market grow. We look at the team. It's very important, and I'm pretty sure my fellow panelists will talk about that. The cohesion of the team members. Do they gel? Have they worked before? How do they interact? How do they deal when things are not going according to plan? And of course, last but not least, the fund parameters that we look into shaping each and every one of the proposals. So I think closing that is important for us to make sure that we differentiate each and every one of the proposals. But at the same time, we ensure that we have a common platform that ensures that each and every one of these funds are treated exactly the same way, and they know exactly why they are going through the next stage of our evaluation or not.
You give me Passo to go further to my previous question, and I would like to ask you how EIF will measure the success and the broader impact of its investments in the VC, in the venture capital funds, to effectively contribute to building a robust biotech ecosystem in Greece.
Thanks again. A number of parameters, I think. Because of the nature of the way I described EIF being an institution that has one leg on the public side and one leg on the private side, we need to apply sort of a matrix of multiple dimensions of evaluating and addressing the impact. First of all, it's important to make sure that all the key policy areas that we need to adhere to, that the European Commission aspires to achieve in all these ecosystems, are implemented, are monitored, and are evaluated. At the same time, we need to ensure that there is a financial continuum, both on the funds and the way that we're actually managing, to ensure that the return that we are, or our shareholders are expecting from us, is actually met. It's very important to stress the additionality that we place when we actually put our stake or our investments into these funds. And what do I mean by that is that a lot of our shareholders, and it's sometimes it's a criticism if we bring on for evaluation an investment in a fund that had perhaps 2 or 3 rounds already from us. Because the question they're asking us is, what is your added value? We as an institution need to bring added value. There is no point in participating in a fundraising for a fund if there are a number of private investors who are more than capable to fulfill the amount of money that they are looking to raise. In actual fact, we would like to think that the moment a fund does not need us, our whole purpose is done, and we can graciously move to the background. So it's important to identify, and this is what we're doing, smaller markets, developing markets, where there are gaps, where we identify these gaps, and we go in and we try to fit this gap and give the incentive for the market to grow. We do that also at the early stages. The discussions that are happening with the European Commission, for example, when the 7-year multi-financial programs are putting in place, the feedback we give them is important because this is where they expect us to tell them where we see gaps in the market and where they can direct funds to support these markets. So that's a very important part and a very important role. And looking into the bioscience space, we've applied the same rationale across all the markets that we're actually participating. We put more emphasis in some of the smaller markets. Because of our expertise, because of the size, the footprint that we have in the market, a lot of the private investors see our participation as a seal of approval. And because we set our standards very high, and we hold ourselves responsible for making sure that the investments that we undertake have gone through a very rigorous process and actually monitored throughout, that gives the comfort to the investors to come and join us, at least at the early stages, at least for these markets which are relatively small, growing. And once they grow, then we can actually move back graciously.
Thank you. And now, if I may, I would like to give 2 to 3 minutes to each one of you, Ioanna, Alexandra, and Lampros, to introduce to us your venture capital fund, to present your venture capital fund that you are representing.
Thank you, Roula. Thank you to the organizers for bringing everyone together. 16 countries, that's amazing to bring the family together. My name is Ioanna. I'm a partner at Untethered Ventures. We are closing our fund soon with the support of the EIF. And we aim to invest in tech companies that change human health, that improve human health. We are a group of partners, 3 partners. I have a life science background, Greg has the healthcare background, and Christina has the tech background, to help to assess product market fit for the companies, to help companies grow globally, to put Greece on this global stage for healthcare and life science. Our focus will be around digital health, but also medtech, diagnostics, and R&D enabling, with a focus on seed stage investments, but also some pre-seed and Series A.
Thank you, Roula. So my name is Alexandra Tolia. I'm founder and managing partner of Rhea BioVentures. I'm very happy to be here. I was here last year as well, and a lot has happened since then. We are getting also very close to closing our new fund, hopefully by the end of the year. And again, the support of the EIF has been instrumental there as well. Our focus is on biotech. So I've been myself an investor in life sciences for the past 20 years. I'm a scientist by training, but that's a very long time ago. And my motto has always been, I want to change the world. This is why I became a scientist. This is why when I became an investor, it was all about having an impact. It was about creating companies, building companies that could add to that goal of saving the world. Greece came much later into my reflection. I've been abroad for many, many years. I have been following a little bit what has been happening here. But as a specialized investor in biotech, Greece always seemed like it was quite far away from everything else. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think we are living through a momentum that we should definitely take advantage of, and this is what we're trying to do with Rhea BioVentures as well. So our fund is going to be focused primarily on biotech, with some extra room for life science investments that could de-risk the profile. We are a team of very experienced fund managers before. We have collectively co-managed over 600 million euros in assets under management, both in Europe and the US. And we just know how to build companies in the sector. We see a lot of opportunity here, and I'm hoping we will get a chance to actually build some nice companies together with our esteemed fellow fund managers with the help of the EIF in the coming few years.
Thank you. Many thanks to EIF for all this. We wouldn't be talking about this if it weren't for the EIF initiatives. My name is Lampros Kourtis, and I'm a partner at Olivetree Venture Capital. We're a fund of founders, and that has been our previous role. For the past 5 or 6 years, I worked for a large family office in Seattle, investing in technologies in the neurodegenerative space, and to bring all this experience into Olivetree. Olivetree will be investing in the intersection between technology and biology. We're addressing some of the urgent needs of the ecosystem now, like the aging population, the strained hospital systems. We're trying to promote ideas and concepts that shift towards preventions as opposed to treatment. As I mentioned, we're founders ourselves, and we want to be working with new founders and shaping their new ventures. Thank you.
Thank you. Ioanna, you and your partners have lived many years abroad, some of you still. Given the current market environment, what are your initial expectations for deploying capital for new ventures in this sector? And how might your strategy change as you learn more about the Greek ecosystem?
Indeed, I've been all my career abroad, my professional career in Switzerland, France, the UK. My colleagues have been in the US for several decades. And what we observe here, the unique moment for Greece today, is that there is a turmoil that is happening around the world. And all of a sudden, Greece has a GDP that is ramping compared to other European countries. We are in the top GDP raise, and it's an opportunity for Greece now to attract talented founders, to use the ecosystem that already exists here of talented scientists and engineers to build strong companies. Yorgos mentioned EquiFund 1. There is a very, very strong group of technical people that have been employees in EquiFund 1 companies, founders that have exited, that make exceptional material for EquiFund 2 because they are interested in healthcare and life science now. Their interest is turning towards this sector. And we can help them understand how to access this very specific market that has its own particularities, we need to understand the market well. And as founders ourselves, as fund managers in the past, we can help these companies grow. The brain gain that has been achieved in Greece is remarkable. I'm part of it. I've returned to Greece after being 13 years abroad. I've been 15 days in Greece. I brought my partner along because we believe in this country. We believe that we can make it work. We believe that we can all have career opportunities, that we can build career opportunities in this country. And this is a very, very specific historical moment where Greece can make it. And we have to all unite our powers to make it happen, to make Greece a reference point for the healthcare and life science sector. The challenge there would be to find which specific sectors, subsectors of the healthcare and life science Greece can be competitive in. And we, through the rigorous process of that George described, through going deeply into the market research to understand the advantages of Greece, we have identified that the digital health system that is being built in the country, the access to clinical trials, can actually attract companies from abroad to come to Greece, establish presence, and be very competitive in Greece. Our presence as part of the European Union convinces companies to come and establish strong presence in the EU to commercialize products within the EU, using Greece as the access to the European Union.
Thank you. Lampros, I'm coming to you. And from the venture capital perspective, what are the main challenges for scale-up companies in the current market environment?
Yeah, great question, Roula. And this was one of our primary research questions when we started this journey. And first of all, I'd like to paraphrase Lord Kelvin, who said, if you cannot measure it, you cannot improve it, right? So that's what we did at first. We measured the ecosystem. So we worked with SEV, the Hellenic Enterprise Association, Σύνδεσμος Ελληνικών Βιομηχανιών, and we actually mapped the entire ecosystem of what is, native in Greece and what is in the proximity, in the early proximity of the diaspora. We interviewed each founder, and we actually created pockets, and we categorized their companies according to their field, their stage, and their size. And here's what we found. I think I brought a slide. So if you click on the clicker, I think there should be a slide out there. There was about, that's the one. So about 150 companies that we mapped, and about 60% of them are in a seed or Series A stage. They have 1 to 3 customers, and they are stuck there, which is spot on to your question. How do you scale on? Based on our research and the interviews that we did, there were 2 main reasons that were reported by founders, and one that we observed. The first one was the growth capital was lacking. There was no growth capital, so you can't go to the next step because there was no growth capital. As we heard yesterday and today, there are now growth capital opportunities. And of course, the EIF is doing its best. There's going to be new funds that are going to be created, so there will be, this will be addressed to a certain extent. The second parameter is lack of access to international markets. And I'm adding a third parameter that I observed, the poor need framing to start with, which leads to poor product definitions, which lead to poor product fit. And I'll share an example there. These two second and third parameters, they're much more difficult to address right now. So first, it requires a change of mentality from a lot of founders. You can't innovate globally if you just extrapolate from the Greek ecosystem. I'll give you an example. I was once talking to this founder that came out of a Greek university that developed a method. So this is a great example. They developed a method, a diagnostic method that relied on protein multiplexing. This naturally would be addressed with the bead technology, Luminix, and all this business that can do multiplexing. But they tailored it to work on a PCR machine because they assumed that every lab in Greece has a PCR machine sitting there after the COVID era, right, when we did our PCR tests. And they wanted to go to the US market. But in the US market, there's no mom and pop microbiologico around the corner, right? So, you don't do business like that. There's two companies that do all the labs in a centralized, huge lab that has multiplex technologies, that have protein, bead, Luminix technologies. They don't need to use PCR. They spend all this money, all this effort, and all this time to develop a PCR method that was completely unnecessary because their target market was not using this kind of technology. So this is essentially what I'm saying. Need frame, look at your market and all this business. So this requires a lot of change of mentality, as I said. To gain access to international markets, quick rule of thumb, I would essentially push companies to engage an international partner, somebody, not an advisor that can promise 100 million in sales in 2 years, somebody that will go door to door, somebody that's highly motivated, that has probably equity in the company, even founder level equity. This is very, very important. A person that strategizes the market fit. How does a company will market? That's what you need to scale up. And how do you find these people? Right? This is not the easiest thing. A Greek angle always helps. Convos, Aristia, this venue here, this is a prime venue for this. Endeavor. I mean, these are the venues that can help people find the right partners internationally and essentially invite them to join their ventures. And again, on the product and market fit, very, very important. If you want to really scale up, you need to have that product market fit. And this is mostly invisible to the founder because you don't know what you don't know, right? So you think that you've found a solution and it will solve all the problems. But you need an external look. So we at Olivetree are actually setting up shop that will help and work with the founders to help them find those product definitions, validate them through discussions with KOLs, but always on the international market. So these are a few ideas on how to scale up. It's not easy.
Thank you. Alexandra, I'm coming to you. In the audience, we have many health tech startups. So what are the key performance indicators or metrics you will use to evaluate the potential and also the progress of health tech investments beyond just financial returns, obviously?
Yeah, I think I mentioned that already, right? The reason why I got into the sector was because I wanted to save the world. So I think this is the first and primary outcome that you're looking at if you're working in the sector of life sciences, either that is biotech or it is health tech or it is healthcare systems as well. The impact that you have on patients' lives, that's something that would not change, and it's always at the back of our minds. And no matter how many models we run or how many calculations we make, we always, at the end of the day, smile if we do manage to offer something to a patient that he didn't have access to before. And that, for me, is still something that's a major driver. And that also makes our business, because I want to come, and it's also related to the question to Greece as well, that makes our business global. So for me, it's not about what we do in Greece, what we do in Europe, what they do in the US. We can keep on talking a lot about how to improve things, how to learn from each other. But the key is to actually have the mindset of collaboration, have the mindset of being able to learn from each other and also exchange on those KPIs. So beyond that social value that I'm very proud of working in the life science sector as well, as an investor, obviously, we are talking always about ROI, so return on investment, and that is typically a composite type of thing, right? So people think that we are talking about ROI, we mean financial return. That is one aspect of it. There is another aspect that has to do with the leverage factor that we say. So it's something that Haris alluded to before as well. So we always look at co-investing. So how many euros that we put at work in our portfolio companies, how many additional euros we might actually be able to attract from co-investors as well. The second thing is the knowledge exchange, and that for me is very relevant for Greece as well. I remember we were here last year as well, and we were discussing about what academia is great at and what business is here to do for them. And I still feel that there is a major disconnect. That's not only a Greek problem, that's in every single country the same thing. So the way that we work it out, and we do make it one of our KPIs as well, is to actually offer that educational and bridge part between then the academia and the business. We are not academic scientists, but what we can do is offer that knowledge from working with different companies across the world to the academic founders in order to help them move something from an idea, a project, to what is a fundable company. And that makes a great difference as well. So knowledge exchange is one of these intangible things that we definitely keep an eye on. Obviously, things like job creation and so on is something that you hear a lot there, but I also want to be provocative on that one as well. I've worked before with funds where the social aspect and the job creation was really at the top of the agenda as well. And what I've always been saying is, that's a great KPI, but it should not be short-term. So what I care about is creating companies that I would know and hope that they are going to be there and growing 5 years from now, and not that they would create jobs for the year to come and then they are gone. So again, that's what creates, from my perspective, an ecosystem, and this is automatically part of the metrics that we are taking into account in order to do our jobs. Okay. As simple as that.
Thank you. So now allow me a short introduction about Uni-Pharma, which is a very respectful pharmaceutical company that operates in Greece, focusing on development, manufacturing, and distribution of a wide range of pharmaceutical products, including generics, if I may not wrong, advanced medicines and other healthcare solutions. And we have with us Spyros Kintzios, a very experienced, hands-on, I would say, executive, very close to the innovation ecosystem, supporting also startups. So, Spyro, my next question goes to you. From the perspective of a large pharmaceutical company, what are the key strategic benefits, but also the challenges of partnering with new health tech ventures?
Great. Well, thank you very much for the great introduction. I'll hold on to the hands-on, which is a big compliment, and it really describes and it hits a note deep in my core, because I really respect that, and I think it brings a lot of value. And many thanks for your great words about our company and what we're trying to achieve. And to be honest, it's really surprising because I think also Steros Papadopoulos had a reference with a very positive outlook in the Greek ecosystem of the pharmaceutical companies. And I kind of feel pumped up to be here to represent this part of the woods and kind of be at par with those great people. Although we're representing a part of a family office, I do not really feel like a venture capitalist. But I think we play a very critical role in the ecosystem, and hopefully I'll get a chance to explain this through the great question you just laid on me. The reality is that we got into this, and we are expecting to get a return from partnering with startup or biotech companies, or let's say teams or research teams that deal in innovation, in the sense of organically growing what we do and diversifying into a more value-generating aspect of our space. The crude reality is that with the old business thinking or a conservative business thinking or a strict financial or managerial business thinking, you could say, we're in a space where we're blessed enough to have manageable risk. I can invest this amount of money into a well-established molecule and get a fantastic return after a couple of years and just keep on doing that. I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Just keep on doing that. So why do we decide not to do that? Because we really believe in the magical moment. I think all of my other co-panelists mentioned that. The momentum is right, and we need to do our part. And I think pharma companies, as also Stelis Papadopoulos said yesterday, they bring something to the equation. They're not poised to be investment machines, but what we have is we can bring in complementarities with regards to business development, negotiations, IP management, or strategic partnering. So this is exactly what we're looking into when trying to team up with academic teams and startups. This complementarity. So, and also in that respect, we are a family office that does not seek to maximize return on capital invested. We're a family office that tries to work on synergies, work on the complementarities, and help those teams grow along with us. So in that sense, we act both as an incubator and accelerator for our partners. And I think this is the biggest part of the value we bring in that equation. And we pretty much started, like Lampros said, with mapping. So we started with mapping out the entire space in Greece, in the health sciences. Well, I do not claim that we have like the absolute map of this world. We keep on exploring more and identifying more opportunities, more teams. And I'd like to say to everybody, please reach out to us. We'd love to hear about your ideas and your team and what you guys are doing. And if it's a good fit, because we are going to be blunt with you, we're going to be very pragmatic about the strategy. If there is a good fit, we will guarantee try to make it work with you. So we did this. We have the Kintzios Foundation that is an arm that allows us to have this dialogue with the research community. And through that exercise, we have been able to identify a lot of teams, and we have a vast array of projects, just from very small grants to pre-seed and seed positions that we take. And out of this pipeline, we are hoping to get a lot of value-generating projects coming out. Our first one is a startup in drug discovery, a small molecule in pulmonary fibrosis. That's a project we've been doing with Fleming. That's science that's been going on for 10 years, and now it has grown to the point of becoming a startup and going out in the world.
Thank you. Alexandra, you have an international experience in R&D in this sector. So are there any emerging subsectors or technological trends within the biotech, the health tech space that you find particularly promising or disruptive, and why?
So I'm going to tell you what we don't do, and we don't invest in the hypes of the now. So actually the answer to your question is we typically are asked to predict how the future is going to look like. There are a lot of trends we can discuss that are happening at this moment. You have CNS, you have AI, you have a lot of new enabling technologies that can help drug discovery. You have a lot of updates in healthcare systems where also health tech can play an important role. Clinical trial management, I mean, that's a sector that has been growing quite a bit. And this is all really great, and we observe that process and that progress. From an investor perspective, what I would say remains the same, no matter how many cycles you have of these trends coming back and forth, is that you always need to invest in an unmet need. It can be in oncology, it can be in CNS, it can be in anything you can imagine. As long as you have something differentiating, it will be the winner, now or in 10 years from now. So we are not following trends. We can discuss academically about them, but we are actually looking for things that have what we call as USP, a very clear positioning in the market, and address a very clear unmet need. And then you know that you're going to have a winner.
And Ioanna, what advice would you give to early-stage entrepreneurs seeking funding, given the current investment landscape, of course?
I would say, molon lave, come and take it. The Greek ecosystem is growing, as you can see in this panel. Added to the HDB funds as well. So the question is, what does it mean to come and take it? So when I was teaching at Imperial College London, I would always ask a group of brilliant students, if you had a Parkinson's drug, if you had discovered a Parkinson's drug, do you think that this would become a blockbuster? And everyone said, yes, of course. And this made me realize that these extremely bright students do not understand the process of the commercial aspect for taking a drug into the clinic and into the market. So I would advise them, along with the STEM skills, engineers, scientists, medical doctors, to include a big part of their team to be a commercial team, a team that would go to Spyros and the Spyros of the world to ask the question, is that something that brings value? Is that something that can convert into a commercial opportunity? Because VCs are in the business of making money. So there has to be an economic value to the venture that you're pitching. And who is best than business graduates, management graduates, to help you navigate this path?
And thank you for passing this question. And this is my question, Spyro. How does Uni-Pharma identify and also assess potential investments or partnership opportunities with these companies? And what are the most important factors you consider beyond just the scientific or technological merits of their innovations?
Without a second thought, as Ioanna said, it's the economic value, or even more, it's value delivered. It is very, very important to highlight this. There's a lot of brilliant minds, a lot of young people that are enthusiastic about the science, but they do not understand the basic concepts of business. I would not even go as far as economics. With economics, I mean, as long as you stay in microeconomics, that makes some sense. It's like people need to be trained early on. Scientists need to be trained early on in entrepreneurship and just basic business strategy concepts. So we see most of the time people having great ideas, they put a lot of energy into those ideas, but they do not understand how this can bring value. And really, I'm not even talking about monetization yet. I'm just talking about value delivered, simple questions. What you thought can become a product or a service, and what will it do for someone? What will be the utility? How will it change Roula's life? How will it change Lampros' life or Ioanna's life? In what sense? What is the value it would bring? So this is number one, business feasibility of the actual product or service. And then, we take it from there. All the rest, and this is a good thing, and as I mentioned before, we act as an incubator and accelerator. We can bring in the business skills required to take things further to quite an extent. We do have great people that can do project management. We have IP experts, we have legal experts, we have a long track in building partnerships, so we can offer that part of the equation. And in our model, we do not care so much about the team. So a venture capital, we need to worry a little bit more, depending on how much they can put in terms of assisting managerially the ventures. But in our case, we take that for granted because we go after this organic complementarity. Our targets are ideas, projects, teams that fit in our strategic overview of what we want to do, of where we want to go. So the most critical aspect by far is value delivered, people understanding how their idea can become a product or a service and deliver value to someone.
Thank you. George, you are working for many years in multiple asset classes, and during the years of financial crisis, you were involved in many projects in Greece, Ireland, and other countries. So my two last questions go to you. First, what role can public funding or initiatives like EquiFund 2 play in mitigating risks and encouraging private capital to invest in health tech ventures, particularly those in early stage that mainly addressing unmet needs, I would say?
Thank you also for reminding me of that lovely dark period. It's not something that I'm greatly fond of, but you're right. It was an eye-opener both in Greece and in Ireland during that time. But coming back to your point about the public funding, I think I touched upon that aspect during my first intervention. The risk-sharing mechanism that we actually employ, i.e. that we are participating together with the private investors, is the one that we feel the public funding comes in to mitigate some of these risks. We've identified, looking across the board, and I'm referring both to our interventions on the debt and the equity side, that every euro of investment that we're actually making, be that as an equity participation or be that as a guarantee type product, if you're looking on the debt side, tends to leverage up to 5 times of private investments. And that's really important because this is exactly what you need for a market to flourish, to grow, and see the benefits of these early interventions of institutions like ourselves, institutions like the HDBI or all the other national promotional institutions in the other EU countries. The other aspect is the addressing of the market failures. Because of the nature of us coming into a market when sometimes financial institutions or some of the more mature, perhaps investors or private investors do not want to come in. We catalyze this market, we give the incentive for these investors to come in. And why do I say this? Because, again, and I touched upon this before, because we come in and because we have the previous expertise, because we have and we can show the performance of our portfolio during the good and the bad times, that creates an incentive for the private investors to come in. We have skin in the game. We seek a return. So we participate at the same level as the investors, in some cases less because of the public nature of that, depending on the way that the mandate or the funds that we're actually investing are. And again, that gives the impetus for the private investors to actually join us in these investments. And it's important, we need these investors because public, and I know we keep on talking about public, and Europe is particularly the center of the public investments. In the US, you're not talking about that. Eventually, I would like to think that we'll reach that stage where we don't. But at this point in time, institutions like ourselves, like HDBI, like KfW, and so on, are needed because they need to catalyze the market, especially the early stages, to bring these private investors back on. And it's interesting that what the investors look into that, and 2 points that probably is not going to come as any surprise to any of you. Looking into what we call the power law distribution, about a third of all realized companies that we have in our portfolio generate about 96% of all proceeds. And the top 2% of the companies account for about 20% of the proceeds. So you need a strong portfolio. You need to give that incentive so the investors to come in. I was looking at the performance of our, well, we measured it from 2019 to 24. Our benchmark on the life sciences and biosciences is about 36% up versus the Nasdaq Biotech, which is about 12%. So that is, again, an incentive we're trying to give to the private investors.
And I need the permission from the organizers for another question. I think that we have 2 minutes left. But I think that it's really very interesting to close with this. George, how does EIF work with policymakers and other stakeholders in Europe to ensure that its investments are aligned with broader EU policy objectives? I mean, how do your actions contribute to larger societal goals beyond just financial returns?
51 seconds to answer. Okay, we'll do that. I'll start with, I was thinking about the question, I'll start with what I wanted to finish, because that's important. We feel that we do not just align with the policy objectives, we try to shape them. Do you remember I mentioned before that we are in constant dialogue with the European Commission, we're in constant dialogue with the national promotion institutions, with the governments. We try to give them as much feedback as we can from our experiences in the markets. And why we do that? Because we can identify the gaps and we can advise them of where they can deploy and shift resources if necessary to address market failures or to promote the early seeds of the recovery in a market. And that's very important. We are a direct extension of the EU policy. I mentioned to you 60% of our shareholding is the EIB, 30% is the European Commission. So we need to align with that. And our investment strategy needs to target these EU goals, the target of competitiveness and growth, of innovation and digitalization, and of social impact. But at the same time, we are utilizing multiple channels, and that's important because we take funds from the European Commission, we work together with the national promotional institutions, we work together with the governments and the funds that they give us. And I want to finish by making a special mention on the role and the relationships that we have with the national promotion institutions. And since we are in Greece, the role and the positive interaction we're having with HDBI. In actual fact, we even strengthened our relationship recently by signing a memorandum of understanding, which makes the informal discussions we have even more formal. And it's important to have a complementary role, and we do that with most national not with all national promotion institutions. In smaller countries, is even more important, is paramount, because we cannot be in each other's toes. Harris mentioned about the majority of the portfolio being of a more of an agnostic on the investments. We are shaping a lot more on the thematic, but we're still working together, we still collaborate, because this is the only way that the ecosystem can grow and flourish. And in a market like that, and in an ecosystem like the life science ecosystem we're talking about, I think the combination of two institutions will have a much, much higher and multiplier effect rather than 1 + 1 = 2.
Thank you. Any questions from the audience? Yes, please. I don't know if someone can help us on... Please, 1, 2 questions. Yes, I think that we have. And I have a third question, the last one to Lampros, but I keep it because I missed the opportunity to ask you something that you will talk for all of them. Please, I'm sorry. Sorry, we cannot hear you. Give us a minute.
Hello. I'm George Koliakos, President and CEO of a small medium enterprise, BioHellenica, SA. So what is the roadmap to approach you and apply for a growth grant for a growth investment fund for my company. I understood that it is time now, there is more money, it used not to be before, so there is now an access. What is this access? Have we to go to your web pages, or is there an application, or how does it work? That's my question.
Maybe Lampros, Alexandra? No, I think the protagonists are here.
So there is no particular process, right? You just come to us and then you talk to us and you tell us what the idea is. What I do need to mention is that, funds typically, they start investing from the moment that the fund is closed as well. So we are all in this period now where we are looking at a lot of interesting ideas as well, but we cannot allocate funds yet until we have our first closing. And I can speak for my colleagues, I think, as well, that we are looking into this happening by the end of the year, more or less. But nevertheless, we are very actively scanning into the market. So we're always very happy to listen to ideas and then to give you some offline advice as well on what would be interesting potentially to see, and then evaluate it properly as an investment opportunity at the moment that the fund is actually closed.
So there is no online approach. We have to come in your office, as far as
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you. Another question? Last one, please. Yes, please.
Mine actually stems from this. Like, how active are you in scouting out any investment opportunities, as opposed to someone actively coming and saying, here's an idea that I have? Like, do you actively look at the ecosystem in Greece, for example, any interesting scientific opportunity, something that you think could be invested in?
Maybe I can answer this one. So first of all, it's very important to read the thesis, the investment thesis of the fund, to make sure that it makes sense to you, and that it aligns to what the goals of the fund are. We welcome inbound as well as, so if you come to us, if you send us an email, we'll establish a portal through our website, through the Dealum platform, in order to welcome inbound opportunities. But of course, the personal interaction is what works best. It's our mandate to lift every single stone to find opportunities that could work for Greece. And you can be sure that we'll do that as long as it fits our investment thesis.
So thank you very much. Thank you very much for having us here, and congratulations to the event. So